I wanted to start off with the pyramid and the tomb that they claim is Khufu's. You know, the images that they have is aligned with the demonstrations of many scholars who studied the Anu manuscripts or teachings. The brother was speaking about how they spoke into the Ankh and sent the information into the troglodyte's mind. The archaeologists admit to this day that they don't know nothing really about these tombs. Nonetheless, he's speaking into a lotus. And you see the hieroglyphs going into the mind on the baby that's sitting on the lap of this being. Is it Khufu or Anu? And this depiction is of what they called a birthday. And this is the born day of the Celtic troglodytes. I'm just going to read a short excerpt in regards to frequency with this image, and then we'll get into a manuscript speaking about the Franks not being able to walk, the Celtic troglodytes, the scientists Anu and Ea, while they was watching their experiments progress speed of light. Mathematicians and astronomers have calculated that all the measurements are keys in celestial and terrestrial knowledge. Different Egyptologists has found an analogy between the measurements of the coffin in the king's chamber and those of the density of the earth. In short, inside and out. And in its location, the Great Pyramid shows evidence of having been designed as a monument to science. And we know science was introduced by what they call the Magi, who was studying the stars and navigating elves, navigated their life off of the stars and the alignment of the planets. You know, 7 general spheres, then the sun and the moon. But you have the 7 eyes, them planets they record and they send out your justice. But as I said, the 7 eyes, the Elohim, the 7 eyes of Allah, they all communicate with each other. And the sphere here communicates through the biggest natural known satellite, which is the moon. Those are the Magi, the Moorish Magi, the ones who also taught us how to take baths, which is what we're getting ready to get into. A dissertation on bathing in bodies. And this is from the land of the Saracens, like 1800s or something like that, 1850. Page 150. The Syrians marvel how the Franks can walk. So difficult is it to bend their joints. Moreover, they know the difference between him who comes to the bath out of mere idle curiosity and him who has tasted its delight and holds it in due honor. Only the latter is permitted to know all its mysteries. The former is carelessly hurried through the ordinary forms of bathing. Again, there are many second and third-rate baths. Whether cheating dragon men conduct their victims in consideration of a division of spoils with the bath keeper. Why ain't they giving their own baths? Because they have to have someone else do it. They didn't know how to. Hence, it is that the bath has received but partial justice at the hands of tourists in the East. If anyone doubts this, let him clothe himself with oriental passiveness and resignation. Go to the Hammam el-Qiyatin at Damascus or the bath of Muhammad Pasha at Constantinople and demand that they be perfectly bathed. Now, the Renaissance perfectly breaks down how mathematics, architecture, agriculture, bathing, literature was brought to us by the Moors, which are the Magi, the pinnacle of wisdom of science. But in regards to the bathing, if we never bathed, our skin would be very infected. We didn't understand bacteria. So we would have yeast infections, especially if we was in the sun or the desert, which is where all the Masons are supposed to end up with their eyes poked out. El Hatama, because they broke their oath. And the oath really or affirmation was to uplift fallen humanity, especially when the bloodline shows up and say, hey, we messed up. So here, I got the information to be saved, which is Noble Drew Ali, and they don't want to listen. But imagine being in the sun, you don't know how to bathe, every crevice on your body got yeast infection, you think you punished by God because you got all these sores, and then the Moors come and immerse us under the water, baptism, and then our skin started to be healed. We didn't understand bacteria, so all we seen was they was doing a ritual of immersing us under water, and then we was beginning to be healed. Even in the Bible, it speaks of men that had leprosy and they was dunked in the river and came out healed. Honors to the Magi, who kept their solar and lunar calendars on their heads. Literally. I did a video 2 weeks ago on my great-great-grandfather. And that had to do with him baptizing. I didn't even think about that demonstration when I made this demonstration. Man, I've been working on the troglodyte and Moorish Magi book, getting together all the images, all factual proof from archaeologists in regards to George Ramsar in the 1800s, finding the Moorish Magi and finding the Celtic troglodytes. One of the most important things to focus on are these 5 granite pillars that they used. It appears to me that they have the rotation backwards. This seems to be corralling in and out. So where they're saying is 5 is actually the first pillar that they would close after the experiment. What I'm about to play is an excerpt from just a study I was doing, so the audio may be a little different than this one. But I leave you in love and peace, brothers and sisters. Grand gallery room is the experiment room. Then you have granite block 5 and 1 opened once you have the troglodyte. The subterranean chamber. How big is the chamber? That's what I want to see. And do they look like stalls? Like something you'd have with horses or something? Yeah, stalls. That's where they stayed at. That's the stalls. The subterranean chamber is where the troglodyte was held after the experiment. But the most important thing to focus on are the granite blocks. 5 and 1 is open for them to be in the subterranean chamber, which is their stalls, and they can't get out. Just think how strong, because they had to use big granite blocks, 1 and 5, to keep them from getting back into the grand gallery, which was the experiment room. When it was time to go to work, granite block 2, 4 is open for them to go out to work. But look, you see how they got to run? They have a long running spot right there. That's why they put a granite block at 2 and 4 there to hold them before they release. Then they release them out to work, and then they open them back up to get them back in. But the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, the air vents, what they call the air channel, that's for them to astral plane out of their husk, because they come here to get in their vessel to do their experiments and they work. When they're done, they astral plane out of the air channels to go out. His and hers, the brother and sister or whatever. In regards to Rick Smith and the manuscripts that was found about Anu, the high priest, in the experiment, them speaking into the Ankh, they're speaking into the lotus, and you see the hieroglyphs going into the mind. They can't say this is their child, because if you look at their skin, you see that it's toned. They put a tone to the skin. But then when you look at the being here, they put no tone to the skin, because that's the pale skin troglodyte, Celtic troglodyte. And that was the experiment room. It's the experiment room, bro. And like I said, when they had them made, they go down granite block 5 and 1 to the subterranean chamber, which is their stall. It was their stalls where they stayed at. Islam. Quite inquisitive, are you? Indeed. Well, go ahead and get out of here. I'll leave you in love and peace. Divine honors to Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam.